Hi, welcome to You Didn't Get the Memo. I am your host, Gloria Bailey Ray. Look, as always, we got an exciting show for you, and I have to tell you, this guest today, this woman is just dope. She got it going on, and she gonna educate us and give us something that I think that we all need. What a way to end our final show for the month of December and for 2021 with this awesome guest. But again, I just want to say greetings. I want to welcome you all to the show, and I thank you guys for always for tuning in. I'm your host, Gloria Bailey Ray. And as a reminder, You Didn't Get the Memo show is about providing you, the viewer, with relevant, factual, mainstream information to help you be informed and to make informed decisions. We air live every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. And I want to tell you that our show today has actually been brought to you by Joyce Van Hoof of Golden Memorial Insurance Services. You Didn't Get the Memo show is an interactive show. So if you got questions, if you got comments, please place them in the comment section and we'll do our very best to respond to them. All right. I want to give a quick shout out, as always, to all my viewers, both nationally and internationally. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for tuning in. Look, my guest today is none other than Miss Carolyn Johnson, who is the CEO of Black Cultural Zone. Let me just tell you a little bit about my guest, just a little bit, because her bio is so long, y'all. Look, there'll be another 15, 20 minutes, and I'm going to let her tell you some of the things. But Miss Carolyn Johnson is the Chief Executive Officer of the Black Cultural Zone. Before that, and actually she still is a business instructor at the College of Alameda. And I can tell you what she's going to be talking to us about today. You can see that her background is fitting that she would know and have all of this knowledge to be able to educate and to drive forward the Black Cultural Zone. So, without any further ado, let me introduce you to my guest, Miss Carolyn Johnson. Thank you for joining me today. I know you're busy, but I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me. And I didn't realize it was the epic end of the year, end of the month show. So I am truly honored.
Yes, saving the absolute best for last.
Oh,
And so this has really been awesome. And like I said, your CV is so massive because you've done so many things. So I'm just going to kick it off by let's level set and let's start with you telling us a little bit about your backstory because people want to know. And I was
yeah.
curious as I was researching you. All right, now
Uh-huh.
how did she get all up in this? So talk to our viewers
Yes.
a little bit about your backstory, please.
Sure, love to. So I was conceived in Russell City to two parents. My mother and father met in Russell City, which is an interesting city going through some reparations conversations. But I was born and raised in Oakland, California. I'm a proud graduate of Castlemont High School. I was able to go to college, UCLA, and get my degrees in psychology and business. And because my mom was in healthcare, I followed a healthcare sort of pursuit. I couldn't be a doctor. I fainted at a cadaver. And so I thought, well, let me look at public health. So I wound up getting my master's in public health from UC Berkeley, health policy and administration. And I did some work in the healthcare field. But I realized that it just wasn't enough of what I wanted to know. I wanted to understand what was behind the dynamics that drove insurance and healthcare. And so I went to Columbia Business School and got my master's in business, majoring in real estate finance, in marketing, and then corporate finance. And in New York City, I got involved in a healthcare development project as an internship. And I was the project manager for a hospital in Harlem that was putting together a new hospital, a parking lot, and a mixed income property. And so mixed use property. And I fell in love with development in real estate. And so when I ultimately did return to California, I got into the commercial real estate industry, brokering, underwriting loans, financing with grants, just really digging into that arena while still learning to teach folks about business. And one of the connections between business and the teaching was that people would come to me to look for, they wanted to buy a building or they wanted to lease a large space. They'd gotten some money from grandma. They had a business idea. And I would say, do you have a business plan? Like, I don't want you to lose this money. And I realized that many folks, and particularly my folks, Black folks, um, didn't necessarily have that business plan. So that's what got me into saying, I want to help people really have a business plan so that they don't lose that money. So that's where the nexus between business and commercial real estate came in. And so I've pursued that for quite a while. I love commercial real estate development because you can build your dream. And that's my background. And so currently as the CEO, I'm able to use a lot of those skills in healthcare and finance, public health. This pandemic has definitely raised some of that in business. But I'm also a middle child of five brothers and sisters in Oakland, a large family on both sides of my family. My family's from Louisiana and Texas and Oklahoma. And so I'm just proud to be here, born and raised in Oakland, helping to do what I can for my people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I said your background is so, it's ideally suited for what it is that you're currently doing right now.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to level set, okay, what you're doing, because it's not somebody who's just walked into this,
Yeah.
you feel those shoes and you understand that.
Yeah.
So before I ask you this question,
Hmm.
let's talk about preservation,
Yeah.
because our topic today is about preserving
Hmm.
Black culture. So when I say the word Sankofa, what comes up for you?
You know, a few things come up for me. One, that it is not something that I heard about as a kid.
Right.
Sankofa was something that it has African origins, and we just didn't hear about that. And it speaks to how we have been miseducated, undereducated, how the truth has been hidden from us. But it
Hmm.
also speaks to the ability for rebirth and sort of reaching back and being able to go after our legacy. And I think a part
Yeah.
of preservation is really understanding what we know, what we think we know,
Mhm.
uncovering what we should have known, and making sure that we preserve that and use our traditions to connect that back to where we came from, to where we are, and what the future should look like for ourselves and for our kids. So Sankofa engenders a lot. One, sometimes a little anger, because I literally was very Western educated,
Mhm.
didn't know a lot about even these terminologies, knew Kwanzaa, but it drives me that we should definitely make sure that our kids understand who they are, what happened, where they came from, and what we need to do to connect back to our homeland and the diaspora.
Mhm, mhm. Absolutely. And actually, I pulled this off of your website because I was so intrigued by it.
Hmm.
And being a woman who's raised in the South,
Ah,
we have a different
yep,
upbringing, right?
yep.
And our Blackness is totally, different from a lot than when I moved to California and
Mm,
experienced. Okay. And
hmm.
so when I saw that word, the San means return,
Yeah.
the ko is go, and the
Hmm.
fa is look, see, and take. And I
Yeah.
love the quote,
Yeah.
it is not taboo to fetch what
Yes.
is at risk of being
Right.
left behind. And I mean,
Absolutely.
when you think about that and hear what you say, one of the quotes I had intended to open with was, the Black skin is not a badge of shame,
Right.
but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness.
Yes.
And until our children are taught that, until they
Yes.
understand that, until they really get the memo
Yes.
about that,
Right.
it
Right.
it opens up a whole nother world. So I
Right.
wanted to start with that,
Hmm.
because now the next question that I have for you is, what is the Black Cultural Zone and how
Hmm.
did it come about? Because
Yeah.
we want to hear, what's the goal, what's the
Hmm.
mission? But tell
Hmm.
us a bit about what the Black Cultural Zone is. And I tell you,
Yeah.
woo wee, you guys are moving, shaking, doing it. Just do it.
Thank you. Thank you. So, the concept of a Black cultural zone actually came from a group called Eastside Arts Alliance. It's a alliance, a collaborative of artists who or occupied East 14th Street, which is a major commercial corridor in Oakland. And at the time, 2010, we were starting to notice the dissipation of the Black presence in terms of residents and businesses. At one point, we had over 1,000 Black businesses along that corridor. Now we have much fewer. I want to easily say less than 25. So they said they didn't know what to do. They didn't know about the business and the placekeeping necessarily, but that we need a Black cultural zone. We need to unapologetically say this is a Black city. It's a legacy city, and we want to maintain our presence. In 2014, they formed the collaborative of nonprofit organizations, East Oakland Collective and Just Cities and Allen Temple, to say, how do we do this work of identifying space on these commercial corridors for Black businesses? And then in 2019, I joined the collaborative as the executive director, and we formed the Community Development Corporation to actually do the work of commercial real estate acquisition, development, and management that would house Black cultural zone hubs and center our Black arts and our culture in Oakland. And again, this is a city that had been primarily Black at one point. Our numbers have gone down, but we refuse to let our presence disappear. That is what we want to preserve. And we want to turn things around so that Black people have a place to stay. 70% of the people who are unhoused in Oakland are Black people, living very close to where they grew up. Our businesses don't have spaces. And it's an endemic for lots of organizations and groups, but for Black people in particular, when you disaggregate us from the BIPOC overarching sort of grouping, we are doing really not great. And that's not the end of our story. And so the Black Cultural Zone is here to say that's not the end of our story. We know our legacy, we know our rights, we know what we deserve and what we will have. And it's got to be based in place. We've
Yeah,
got to hold space in this country.
yeah, absolutely. And I love that word, whole space.
Hmm.
Because if you don't, and like you said, when I moved to the Bay Area, all I knew Oaktown.
Yeah.
I mean, Chocolate City.
Chocolate City.
It's the Chocolate City. So
Hmm.
now, when you look at in the demographics, it is so very, very different now.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
the fact that you are heading up an organization that is trying to preserve and
Yeah.
really bring everyone into the fold. It's
Hmm.
really, really awesome. So
Hmm.
I know that you actually wove into that a little bit of the mission
Hmm.
and the goal, but let's just really extrapolate that out and let's
Yeah.
talk about what really and truly is the mission overall.
Yeah.
Let's look at this, because some
Sure.
folks are saying, well, why Black folks talking about wanting to preserve a culture? I mean, let's be
Yeah.
real, because
Yeah.
it's like the whole issue, the misunderstanding
Yeah.
of when we talk about why Black lives matter, right?
Right.
We
Exactly.
know that we're disproportionately affected when it comes to housing. We're disproportionately affected when it comes to healthcare. We're disproportionately affected when it comes to education. And the
Hmm.
list goes on and on and
Hmm.
on. And you
Yeah.
got to ask yourself, why? And again, for me, that would be off topic for you and I, because coming from the South,
Mm.
in segregated schools into
Yeah.
integrated schools, the trainings and teaching was very different. So
Yeah.
of course, I have a different take on why
Hmm.
that. But
Yeah.
coming back full circle, what is the actual mission or
Hmm.
goal of
Yeah.
the Black Cultural Zone, please?
Yeah. The mission of the Black Cultural Zone Community Development Corporation is to unapologetically center Black arts, Black culture, and Black economics as we collectively design and resource and transform and build collective power for our communities. We are in the situation that we are in because we lack sufficient power. We must build that power by centering ourselves, our arts, and our culture. And it really is unique for me to be able to go into a room and say, where are the Black businesses? Where are the Black people? We love everyone. We've been open arms to everyone who comes to our communities. Immigrants have been able to build lives in the Black community. We didn't burn them out, didn't burn crosses them. We accepted them. And now it's time for us to center ourselves and to say that it's important that our culture, our arts, and economics are designed in such a way that we have power. And in this country, power is real estate in many cases. Power is collaboration and coordination. And that's what the Black Cultural Zone CDC focuses on, is building that economy, building the community's capacity for leadership and power building, building our space and our places that we hold and activate on
Mhm.
behalf of that mission.
Right, absolutely. We're going to take a really quick break, but when we come back,
Mhm.
let's talk about, because you just led into it, like you're just like bleeding over into the questions I have for you, but let's
Mhm.
really delve into, who does the Black Cultural Zone help?
Yeah.
So you guys don't go anywhere. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, I am honored and humbled. Thank you guys. You are tuned in to the You Didn't Get the Memo show with my awesome guest, Miss Carolyn Johnson, the CEO of Black Cultural Zone. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You know, a lot of people say when you're going somewhere, you don't want to look back. But I beg to differ. I can't lie and say it was easy. I looked at everything in a different light. I realized it started with me going back and getting my high school diploma.
My uncle, Freddie Lee Tyson, was a part of the syphilis study. He was such a wonderful man, a very loving, very caring, very jovial person. He helped build the air base at Moulton Field. When you think about the Tuskegee Airmen, all of the greatness that they did, and then in this same space, such an atrocious study was being heaped upon our men, that really shook my spirit. They were not being treated. That is very different from what's happening with COVID-19. The vaccine is being made available to anyone who wants it, even those who find themselves at the space of hesitancy. We have to have patience and give them the requisite information that they need, that they can make an informed decision. But let's do it out of love.
All right, if you guys are just tuning in, you are listening to and tuned in to my awesome guest, Miss Carolyn Johnson, who is the CEO of the Black Cultural Zone here in Oaktown. And what a fitting into our year end show, and I'm excited to have her on. Now, we're talking about preserving Black culture. So, if you're just tuning in, I want to remind you guys you can always go back and you can view the entire interview with Miss Johnson. So, share it, share it, share it, share it, and let's talk, guys, and let's learn. So, before we went to break, I posed to my guests to really talk about who does the Black Cultural Zone help. And let me just say, I love the fact that you know what, keeping it real. That's how I sound. Being authentic. Okay. And you said we didn't burn other ethnicities out. We didn't burn people out. People have come into our communities and they have built, I mean, businesses and homes and things around it. And I wanted to say thank you, my sister, for acknowledging that,
Mhm.
because that is real. And you know what? We are inclusive
Yes.
as opposed to being exclusive. And I really appreciate you saying that. So
Yeah.
back to the question at hand. Who does the Black Cultural Zone help?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'm learning to say that a little bit more because I think, and I'll go back to what I just said. People have to respect the struggle. Wherever you see us at currently, you haven't seen that we freed ourselves in this country. We built towns, they were burned down. We built communities, they were destroyed. And wherever you see us in this struggle, I ask you to respect it and know that we are open arms and we need you to put us in the first place currently. But we serve Black and African Americans who have been displaced or are at risk of displacement from their legacy community. So a legacy community is a city like Oakland that at one point had the significant majority of from a racial perspective, Black. We also serve current BIPOC and other residents who are living in our legacy Black communities. So, West Oakland is not maybe majority Black, and East Oakland barely is or still is. But we serve everyone because, again, we are not here to exclude anyone, but we're here to support the communities where we created them and we lived. We support artists in particular, makers and creatives, because we believe that these folks really carry our story. We support entrepreneurs and business owners because the only path out for economy is really to build a strong career or to build your business. We serve young people who are in need of direction and support. So we hire hundreds of young people to work in our events. We support returning citizens, folks that have been incarcerated and are returning home. We know that a big percentage of those are going to be African Americans. And we support Black property owners to hold their space, improve their space, and develop their space as well. So those are the people that we serve.
Oh, okay. We have a question from one of the viewers out of Texas, and his question is, and may actually, because we're going through this right now in Oakland, the question is, how do we lose property rights through rezoning by some city council members? Austin, Texas is known for these type of tax. these types of acts?
Yeah. So I, I'm not an expert in zoning, but zoning has a couple of impacts in terms of what you can create, what you
Mhm.
can do on that property. And so if it's rezoned in a way that it no longer has the value that you acquired it for, you may wind up letting it go at values less than what you expected. And so if you bought it and it was an auto zone or an auto business, but you can't have that anymore, when you go to try and sell it or lease it, you've lost value. So that rezoning has impacts. And rezoning and planning have been used for centuries to really separate and remove value from Black communities. The planning communities, the planning departments, the urban renewal activity all use zoning as a tactic to actually get you to leave or to lose your property. And so being involved in the planning council, being involved in your city council, being aware of what's happening and calling it what it is. When it's racism or holds in institutionalized racism, you have to call it out for what it is and fight against it. Any change at the planning committee to zoning or anything that affects property, we have to look for what are they really trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. And that's a ongoing conversation that I have with
Yeah.
people who are always, complain about things. And I'm like, well, do you go to your city council meetings?
Right.
Nowadays, everything you can zoom in and
Yeah.
listen and still have
Right.
comments and those kinds of things. If
Yeah.
you've got a homeowners association, people
Hmm.
who aren't involved in those associations,
Right.
they're there for a reason.
Right. Right.
So we have to become more astute when it comes to dealing with that. And that was a great analogy. You're right. You
Yeah.
started out, it was the auto shop, and it was
Yeah.
the neighborhood auto shop,
Yep.
and now somebody wants to rezone it because they
Right.
want to build apartment
Right.
buildings,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, but great question. Thank you so much.
Can I say one more
Yeah,
thing? I'm sorry.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
participation, civic participation, participating in your homeowners association is also a privilege. If you have 4 jobs, you don't have time to do that. What I always suggest, so participation, volunteerism is a privilege that not everybody has. And so what you have to do is organize a collaborative of folks. I can't go to every Thursday meeting, but I can go to the first one, you go to the second. And how do we share with each other? This system has us so busy, has us working so hard with so many jobs that we can't participate. And that is not by happenstance.
Yeah. Look, all I can say now, that's the truth. Because I one more Zoom meeting, one more board meeting, I'm thinking, you just, and
It's a
I
lot.
know, and look, I don't mean to sound like a complaint, but I'm like,
It's a
it's a
lot.
little,
It's a lot.
it absolutely is. But what a great suggestion. And you're
Hmm.
forming that, and you're
Hmm.
absolutely right. So not
Right.
one person is taxed,
Right. Right.
in terms of doing it. So
Hmm.
excellent suggestion. Thank you so much for that question. All
Hmm.
right. So when I say this, because you talked about the Black Cultural Zone, but let's talk about, you said that you hire a lot of children,
Hmm.
but also the impact that the Black Cultural Zone has on things like schools not prison, school
Yeah.
discipline reform.
Hmm.
And I know here in Oakland, there's a whole lot of controversy around,
Yeah. Yep.
around
Right.
prison and jails
Right.
and things. But how does the Black Cultural Zone fit into dealing with issues such as schools, not
Yeah.
prisons?
Yeah, a great question. I think so. The Black Culture Zone is really three things. It is a geography, so legacy Black community. It is a collaborative of 30 plus Black led organizations and another 20 ally led organizations, and it's a CDC. At the collaborative level, we have these organizations. We break ourselves up into work groups. So arts and culture, strong economy, quality of life, placekeeping. We're looking at education as one of those areas that's important, and so we collectively can identify harm, we call it out, we demand reparations, we demand truth, we demand reconciliation, reparations, and to reimagine a different future. And each one of these organizations all have a different focus, and we focus on how can we do something about that issue. We call it out. We understand that education or the lack thereof or miseducation is probably the most critical thing, and so we focus on it. I'm involved in a project right now, or the BCZ is involved in a project of bringing what we call liberation education to public schools. And what does that mean? It means really telling our history, telling the truth about this country, telling the truth about the race that was won and the racism that holds in place all of the harms that will continue, and telling the truth about what's possible. So education is critical, and that's one of our core values. So the prison, the school to prison pipeline. How do we provide support for parents to be able to understand what's happening with your kid, to support the one Black school, private school that we have here? What kind of education can happen at one of our hubs? What are we doing to create leadership programs? And so there's so many things that we can do in education to prevent folks from being, by third grade, they're calculating, what the prison needs are. Kindergarten, young Black boys come in with the highest level of self-efficacy. I can do anything. By third grade, it's been beaten out of them. We have to tell that story. We have to tell parents to be careful where you put your kid. Who's talking to your kid? Can someone who doesn't believe in them and their essential greatness really educate them? And then we have to offer alternatives. So
Yes.
that's what we do around those things: identify them, figure out what to do, and do something.
Oh, awesome. Look, and look, you got some folks on fire. We able to comment, stop school, school to prison, pipeline, facts.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And, just to thank you. And when we were talking about the whole rezoning,
Yeah.
one of the viewers said, of course, we already know they're doing it right now in
Hmm.
in Oakland as
Hmm.
we speak.
Yep.
So, you know, um, let's talk about, you talked about one of the three arms, and one was the CDC. So talk about the East Oakland Building Healthy Communities
Hmm.
initiative
Yep.
and how this initiative strives to actually change the inequity in the community.
Yes, yes. So East Oakland Building Healthy Communities was prior to the Black Culture Zone CDC. They were
Mhm.
funded by the California Endowment to actually identify what are all the issues that impact health for the East Oakland community, which is primarily Black and Latinx.
Mhm.
They organized that whole collaborative approach. They created the East Oakland Congress of Neighborhoods. Again, this was Black led and BIPOC led organizations that were specifically focused on one geography to say, what can we do to improve the quality of life in our community? And so one of the things that it impacts us is, again, around land, people coming in and they're putting in crematoriums or other unhealthy things in our community and flying right through the planning department, no stops. And so East Oakland Building Healthy Communities put together healthy development guidelines that were accepted by our planning department that says we have a right as citizens to say what comes in our community. We have a right to question, and you don't have the right, planning committee, to approve things that don't deliver on our health. And here are some guidelines. We always have to remind city workers and county workers and state workers and federal, you work for the people. It is the people's money that you are organizing, and these are the guidelines that we have. The other thing that they were focused on was creating a special community endowment, which is still a thought in progress around how do we fund ourselves. There's so much money that the Black community generates, and not much of it stays and bounces in our community. So how can we have a community endowment that's funded and that can be an evergreen fund so that we can fund the things that we need? Because we know the dance, the wonderful dance, the foundations and corporations and those things, but how can we create our own? So we have a lot of hope, and that's what the East Oakland Building Healthy Communities initiative did. It sunset in 2020, and they merged into the Black Culture Zone CDC, so their work continues.
Mm, okay. Oh, awesome. Awesome. Look, I hope everybody that's tuning in, they're getting this, because the work that is being done is a blueprint for it to be all around the country. There's no
Absolutely.
reason that it should not be. And that's the thing. You guys keep your comments coming. I'll share them when we come back. We're going to take a really quick break,
Great.
but thank you for tuning in to You Didn't Get the Memo show with my awesome guest, Miss Carolyn Johnson, CEO of Black Cultural Zone. So, guys, don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Stem is precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to load their minds. Dare to explore. Dare to STEM. Learn more at She Can STEM.
Let's get back to talking smack with the side of mac and cheese. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. To get the facts, visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
All right. If you guys are just tuning in, I'm just going to tell you it's still dope. It's still happening. My guest, Miss Carolyn Johnson, is you know educating all of us around things that can be done in our communities. And it just takes each one of us that's willing to take a little sliver
Yeah.
of, of something and let's put it together. It really and truly is like baking a cake or a pie, right? There are different ingredients and understanding who has the skill sets to be able to pull that together. And this is why we're talking today, our last show of the year,
Mm.
with Miss Carolyn Johnson about preserving Black culture. And I'm excited that she's able to be available and availed herself to me. So before we went to break, one of the questions that I ask, and I'm going to ask, and look, because I just feel like there's no holds barred with you.
Yes.
Tell our viewers, why is the Black Cultural Zone such an important program that people should support?
That's a great question. Yeah. So, displacement and gentrification is a harmful cycle that is a legacy of centuries of institutionalized racism. And we have to decide who we want to be as a country. Do we want to acknowledge and remedy the harms, or do we want to continue the downward spiral? And we are in a downward spiral. Cost of living, working 2+ jobs, high incarceration rates, vis a vis other first world countries, unhoused at levels we've never seen before, health and wellness challenges. But there is a bright light. We can change direction. So, support for the efforts of the Black Cultural Zone to face this downward cycle directly with specific targeted programs and projects and approaches that center our community over the individual, center collaboration and cooperation versus destructive competition, and build beautiful communities that center our vibrant Black arts and culture. We want support from people who love Black culture and love Black people and are willing to put their time and money and other resources where their heart is. But we are at a segue in this
Yeah,
country. We have to
yeah.
decide where we want to go.
Which, of course, then that brings up several comments. So I'll start with the fact that, there's some good stuff, CJ.
It's the
But
truth.
here's a question, going back to alternatives, need more guidance in the community. And
Yeah.
that had to do around, centering around our children, the prison, the school, prisons,
Yeah.
the pipeline is. And I'm sitting here still, I think I'm stunned when you said about third grade, you know, prisons already figured out how many people they need to have in them, because I've
That's
always
right.
said it's a business, there's no question. But also, needing more guidance in the community. And I love the
Hmm.
fact that you're talking about, there's no, no big eyes and little U's, and we all have to come together
Yep.
as a team in
Right.
order for this to actually work.
Yep.
So I appreciate that. But here's a
Hmm.
question from one of the viewers: is where are the Black dollars for Black communities? And
Hmm.
interestingly enough, there's so much money floating around out there, and yet where is it? Because
Yep.
it's not tripling down to,
Right.
to us.
Hmm. No.
So what's your take on that?
So I'll start with a couple of things. One is
Okay.
what I would call our dollars and where we spend our dollars. Are we supporting Black businesses that are Black on purpose? They're not
Hmm.
just a
Hmm.
Black owner becoming a
Right.
millionaire. They're hiring Black people. They're using Black vendors, and their vendors are using Black vendors. And so, where is our money going? Who are we paying it to? If
Hmm.
we looked more inward, which is why we started the Acoma Market at Liberation Park, where I buy most of my stuff now from Black vendors. So that's one. Two is the money that is held by our government, right? So the taxes that we pay, how are they spending that money, and what is their obligation to give it back to
Right.
us and to give it back in numbers that bring equity? So you have to do more for the Black community. Of course, for hundreds of years you took from us, and so there's an obligation that we have to hold them up to. Other places that we have to look for money are things like pension plans. All of us have pension plans that are run by really large entities. They give that money primarily to venture capital in some cases, and those venture capitalists don't necessarily invest primarily in Black businesses. And so we have to follow the trail of all of the money and hold them accountable. The foundations, et cetera, that give money as well, making sure that we are able to comprehensively know where the money is coming from at the state, the federal, the private, the corporate level. Be prepared to present and ask that request for that money and to follow up and to do well with that money so we can get more money. We have to hold our community benefit organizations accountable as well. We've had community based organizations, they've been around for many years in Oakland, and we're not necessarily in a better place. We try to make sure that a lot of our money hits the streets. And so we like a neighborhood messenger program. We get a grant for 250. I want 200 of that to go out into the community to help them in a way to lift them up. So there's a lot of money out there. We have to
Mhm.
identify who is in charge, what they're accountable for, and what we want from them in a clear, coherent way with a Black agenda that we all agree to. We won't agree to everything as Black people, but there's some core things that we need to be asking for
Right, right.
clearly.
Oh, oh, absolutely. One other comment from the gentleman in Texas. I just have to say, he said, need more conversation like this and less statements of not my problem. And I think that that's really important that we have this type of dialogue, and that's why I do this type of show, because we want to highlight what is going on and why it is so vitally important. And I wanted to do this show because I want our people, Black people, to understand
Mhm.
that the dollars, you hold the key, and to understand at one point, the Black dollars used to circulate in the community, what, 20, 24 times or something like that
Mhm.
before it even go outside.
Right.
And we need to bring that
Right.
back.
Yep.
And that's one of the things. So
Yeah. Can
I
I say one thing?
sure,
It
sure,
was a
absolutely.
calculated process for extraction. Some people
Mm,
support segregation, some people support integration, but when they saw what we could do beyond bombing us out, destroying those communities, they
mm,
methodically took those dollars out. And we have to methodically bring those dollars back. And so I
mm.
think about the
Come
choices
on.
I make. But I always say this, but there's this game that's being played. Sometimes we don't recognize we're in that game. We don't know what our chess pieces are. We don't know the moves that they can make because we're not talking to each other. But not only are we playing a one dimensional chess game, it's multidimensional. This is an institutional approach to keeping things in the state that it is because it benefits the privileged. And to make change, it will take work, it will take organization, it will take focus. So the Black Coach Zone, we're here in Oakland, but we are here for other Black communities all around the country. We have got to talk. We've got to share our strategies, our ideas, and focus, not to build a couple of Black millionaires. God bless them all. But we have got to elevate our community. There's a guaranteed state of living and quality of life that we are owed and we are deserved, and we must organize to make sure that we get it across the country,
Mm,
across the diaspora, and connect back to the motherland.
yeah. Oh, look, what can I say? I said enough. That's why you're on here today, right? Because this is people are going out and going crazy around this holiday time.
Yeah.
But you just said it. How many dollars have gone into the Black community? How
Mhm.
many of you have gone out and bought things from Black vendors? How
Mhm.
many of you really recognize the value of when I buy Black, shop Black,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
this.
It's a
I don't.
domino effect. If we can just make a pact that in 2022 we'll make our dollars bounce just twice in the Black community, then the
Come
next
on,
time 4 times, then
come on,
6 times, then 12 times, we'll do better. Right now the dollar bounces less than once, and that's
right?
okay. Again, it
Yeah.
was a structural intervention that took what we used to do for each other, and they saw that
Mm-hmm.
worked so well. They can't
Mm-hmm.
let it happen again. But
Right.
just let your dollars bounce twice in the Black community next year
Right.
and see what that
Right.
does.
If I could just say this, just as a side note, look, if you're dealing with a vendor and you are unhappy with them, look, sometimes people don't know what they don't know, right?
Right.
So before you blast them and say that's why I don't buy Black, really and truly think about it, and go back. Come on, it it is of the utmost importance, guys.
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
really and truly get locked and loaded into this. So I'll get off that soapbox. All right.
Can I just say, praise in public, criticize in private, and move with love. I work
Amen.
with a lot of Black businesses, and I'm just like, oh, it could be so much, but it's like, no, I am making a decision. So show love for. If we want folks to love us, we have to show how we love each other.
Yes.
We are not
Yes.
perfect. We
Yes.
can always do better, but I'm going to help my brother or my sister. So you know what? You might want to do that, and I'm not going to do it on Facebook. I'm going to praise in public and
Yes.
criticize in private.
Yes.
That's our obligation to each other.
Right. I agree with you 200-fold. And thank you so very much for saying that. Absolutely. And social media is not the place for you to
No,
do that. I don't
no,
care who you are because you actually look worse than the person that you're talking about. Right.
right.
So let me ask you this, Miss Carolyn. What is the one thing that you are proud of in regards to the Black Cultural Zone and why? And I know there are many, but if you
Right.
could just, like
So
say, okay,
tough.
let me pull out my hat and let me see which
Right.
ones, right?
Um, I would have to say that we have done over 100 events at Liberation Park, which is a site that we are going to develop from with the city. And we have done this with an amazing set of young people that are the ambassadors and the crew who have come from maybe not having had opportunities to work or not having the soft skills to an amazing A+ team of folks who are confident, who are centered in their culture. They know why they're there. And it's a whole generation of 20 to 30 young Black folks and Latinx folks and some Asian folks who get why centering Black culture is important. I've seen them change in the last year, from some of them being just as impacted or at risk to those who've never had a job to I'd put this event crew up against any crew in the world, and they're amazing. And we're developing them as leaders, and they see themselves as leaders. I always say, I want one of y'all to take my job. First, they were like, oh, I can't do it. You got all these degrees. I can't do it. Now they're like, I can do it. Giving people hope and what they can do as opposed to what they were told that they can do is all we need. That combined with the Black magic, we're good to go.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. You are spot on. Okay, look, we got to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some areas of opportunity for your organization and the types of things that the Black Cultural Zone needs. Guys, thank you. You guys are giving me so many comments. I'm like, okay, I promise I'm going to get to all of them. So thank you so much. But you're tuned into the You Didn't Get the Memo show with my awesome guest, Miss Carolyn Johnson. And I thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be right back.
Thank you for watching the You Didn't Get the Memo show with your inspirational host, Gloria Bailey Ray. It's your contributions that make this happen. To become a sponsor, send an email to youdidn'tgetthememo@gmail. That's the letter U, didn't get the memo. If you're not in a space to be a sponsor, but you like what you hear, we simply ask that you support what you like by making a contribution to the show. There are 3 ways to make an online donation. Visit paypal.me/Gloria Bailey Ray or Cash App or Venmo, Gloria Bailey Ray. Give what you can. Your support is appreciated.
All right, guys, I want to thank you so much for hanging in here. The time seems to just fly by, and there are a gazillion questions. But before we went to that short break, I had asked my guest, Ms. Carolyn, what are some areas of opportunity for her organization? So, as with anything, there are areas. So could you share with us what some of those may be?
Sure. The ultimate goal of the Black Cultural Zone is to develop Black Cultural Zone hubs. These are real estate assets that aggregate retail and food and restaurants and arts and culture so that we anchor a community and then we utilize that to really catalyze development and acquisition adjacent to those spaces. So our goal is to have 10 Black Cultural Zone hubs in East Oakland as a first goal. And East Oakland is about 50 by 50 blocks that we're targeting. So one every 5 blocks. We think that will bring the culture and the atmosphere that we want. So that's an area of opportunity. Another area of opportunity is really around that healing work and that wellness work that is necessary for our community. We can't go further without that and without proper education, liberation education. And so those are 2 areas that I think are absolutely essential for us to really develop those hubs in a way that they will exist and stay. We've got to be healed as people, as individuals, and as a collective. We need to be well. and we need to be smart, and we need to be educated about what happened, what is going on, and what our future is. So those are the areas I see of opportunity for our organization.
Oh, okay. So, what types of things would you say that you give me the areas of opportunity, but
Hmm.
let's talk about the funding needs
Yeah.
for Black Cultural Zone because you
Yeah.
guys, at the end of this, I'm going to ask Miss Carolyn. There's a way for you to also be able to donate, and I don't care if you don't donate to nobody else. You see and hear what this woman and her team and this organization is doing. Come on,
Yeah.
y'all, all over. I mean, I got Texas, I got Arkansas. Look, I got all you guys
Right.
in the
Right.
house. So Georgia, Tennessee. So look,
Oh, wow.
listen up.
Mm.
Let's make sure that we go out of 2021 doing something positive and
Right.
good that has a great outcome.
Mm.
So, Miss Carolyn, funding needs for Black
So,
Culture Zone. Don't look,
yeah.
don't be shy.
I won't be. Our budget is we have a $2 million budget, and we have to fill it. So we definitely need support, general operating support of whatever you can provide for our operations. We have an outdoor roller skating rink where it's also a social enterprise, teaching our young folks how to run a business and also have fun, bringing back something that was taken from Black folks at some point. So supporting particular initiatives would be great. And that general operating money is always helpful. The programs need support as well, financial support, so you can contribute to the Acoma Market, which provides no cost booths to folks to do retail. You can contribute to our Friday night films where we show Black movies and talk about what that means for our community. So there are ways to contribute on our website, and we'll, I'm sure, talk about the website later. And then larger ask are commercial real estate projects. We're looking for Black folks for a couple of things. One is, are you have access to financing? There's very few Black-led investment banking firms. Are you connected to a foundation? We have to raise $150 million for our 3 commercial real estate projects. So those are things. We also need people. I want a Black general contractor. I want Black subcontractors. I don't want to raise $150 million and then give 90% of it outside of our community. Then what are we doing? And so I need human resources as well. What's your expertise? What's your skill? What's your connection? So even if you don't have the funding, connecting us and sharing this story with people that you know who are in that flow helps. And I want to connect across the country. I want us to talk to other communities that have similar issues so we can share our stories, our
Mm,
strategies.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. All right. So that falls in line with number one. Here is one. Talk with Paul
Oh,
Chambers
yeah.
and
I
Steve
love them.
Smith.
Yes.
All right, so
Yes.
that's one thing.
Hmm.
Then the other thing is Liberation Park. Need more info on the cultural zone.
Sure. Sure.
So
So,
you,
so
you,
the
you get that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The Black Cultural Zone runs from High Street in Oakland to the border of San Leandro, from the hills to the water. So it's about half of Oakland. One of the first hubs we're developing is at 73rd and East 14th Street. It's a site that was owned by the city, is owned by the city of Oakland, was abandoned for years, and so that is where Liberation Park is. We've taken that park from an abandoned space, 1.2 acres, and it houses the Acoma Outdoor Commercial. I'm sorry, farmers market. It also houses an outdoor roller skating rink, the only one in the state, I believe. It also houses spaces for fun and for family. So we do a lot of things there. And activities there every Sunday. There's something going on at Liberation Park if it's not raining. So that we put in an offer to the city to acquire it, and our bid was accepted. So we're negotiating an agreement to develop the site. And in about 4 years, we'll start building out 2 buildings. A project where it will have 120 units of housing, including 20 units of maker housing, so you can live next to your business. And there will also be a market hall that will have performance spaces, a music hall, a food hall, and a retail space as well as co-working spaces. So that's the longer term project, but it's right in the middle of East Oakland, near Eastmont Mall, a mall that has declined in terms of its economic viability. And we are building our hub of our own at that corner.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
this, I mean, as they say, this is some great, good, really good stuff, right? All right. So thank you so much. And you got a shout out for your team.
Yes.
They're
Oh,
doing some
great.
great stuff,
Thank you, Imani.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So definitely money. I love this. Part of that healing is regaining the role of parenting.
Yeah.
The
Mm.
outside of our community is a reflection of the
Mm.
inside, the home. Can we start with regaining respect there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thoughts,
Yeah.
thoughts, Carolyn.
That is a great, and it's so true. I think as I deal with folks in, vendors and staff,
Yes.
there's a lot of hurt and pain. Like
Mm,
we carry the pain of our ancestors in our DNA for at least 3 generations. And one of the things that we're utilizing Liberation Park for is as a healing hub where we have space for healing circles. But we're also working with our staff, our team, our crew, our messengers with a whole program of healing. And we had our very first class last week with the healing arts. So
mm,
Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, but not just for the sake of those practices, but how do we deal with conflict? How do we communicate with each other? How do we treat each other? And I'm hoping that as we do this with our crew and our ambassadors, that will do it with our Como Market vendors, that will do it with our neighborhood messengers. And that's 200 people that will take that practice home and say, instead of us fighting like this or dealing with this, you know where that's coming from? That's coming from a deeper hurt. And one of the things that the healing arts trainer said to us last week was that sometimes Black folks don't want to heal. We know if we start busting out crying, we're just going to be messy, and it's a lot. And I know I'm that person that has held on to a lot of pain. But he said, when you heal for yourself, you actually healing for your ancestors. And that is motivation enough for me to say, I got to do some healing work. We all need to do healing work, and we need to take that home. We need to have these uncomfortable conversations. We need to stand up and be examples for our children and for our family members. But most importantly, we need to understand that we didn't get here by chance, and we're not going to get out of here by chance. And it will take a focused effort. And
mm.
at home is first. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. And
Mhm.
look, I can't remember who was it that said they cry ugly. Look, I cry ugly too.
Oh, I guess ugly, and I don't want to get ugly.
It doesn't matter, slinging snot, if that's what it's going to take to get things,
Yeah.
to purge yourself of all of
Hmm.
that. And a lot of times people don't realize how much is packed down
Yep.
for so
Yep.
many years.
Hmm.
And when you finally start to unpack all of that, it
Yeah.
ain't pretty.
Right.
It's not.
It's necessary.
However, it's necessary.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's
We are
the
in a pressure cooker in this country, and we have been since we were
yes.
brought here against our will. And I think it's amazing to those who don't wish to see our elevation that we still exist.
Mm,
This
mm,
conversation, me and you, I mean, I've been to Ghana, I've been to the slave castles, I've done the last bath walk and all that stuff, and sat in the castle. And it's amazing that we're here.
yeah. Yeah.
And we have to trust that we have something amazing in our DNA.
Right. And there is a reason. And that's why we need to survive and we need to
Yep.
get past this.
Yep.
Absolutely. And notwithstanding, there's a reason why somebody doesn't want you to be educated about your history,
Oh,
to
yeah.
understand the greatness from which you come from,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And that in itself is a whole nother issue. So,
Yeah.
you guys, y'all been listening to Miss Carolyn, and I'm looking at your comments, and I know I want y'all to look in your pocketbooks, pull out those credit cards,
Hmm.
debit cards. Um, Miss Carolyn, if you'll put in the chat, in the private chat for me,
Mhm.
your information, how people can donate and all of
Sure.
that. I want to be able to share that with our viewers so that they can
Put it in the
donate.
chat. Sure.
And yeah, do you see it? Private chat? Yeah,
Hmm.
okay,
Yep.
got it. And therefore, look, there is no excuse. So, how can people donate? I'm about to put that up. And while I'm doing that, I want to ask Miss Carolyn to talk about what is it that she want people who are watching the show to take away from today.
Yeah.
Miss Carolyn, what do you want them to do? You
Yeah.
said,
It's so
oh,
hard. You make me choose. I want us to remember that we have a choice in the direction of our country and how we treat each other. And we can make a difference individually and collectively. We can. That we need to reach out and support each other. We need to reach out and support groups that are doing this kind of work. And I think we need to trust in our ancestors, trust in their prayers, and trust that Black people are magic in a bottle. We carry the secret to our future success within us, and we just have to pull it out and fight through all of the things that have tried to bury that. But I have faith, and I want us all to have faith.
oh, awesome. This won't be our last conversation, right?
Amen. A lot to talk
But
about, a lot of work to do.
absolutely. And I have put up, how you guys can go to www.blackculturalzone.org. Guys, you know, I ask very little of you. Give today,
Thank
give,
you.
support, donate, because the work, you just have to go there to see the work, you guys. You really and truly have to do so. And although Miss Carolyn, our time didn't allow us to get into the transformation of a lot of our young Black and brown young men and women,
Hmm.
but to see the changes and to see what it is that they're doing and how they're doing and how they're going about it.
Yeah.
You guys, let me just tell you, that's when you really know that Black lives matter. There's no
Yes.
question about it.
Yes.
So I really, really want to encourage you, whatever you do, please support the Black Cultural Zone. And for those of you who are in all these other parts of the country and you're telling me where you're from,
Hmm.
listen, don't sit back and talk about what's not being done. Get involved,
Hmm.
make it happen, one by one, right? And that's the thing. It's what I'd like for you guys to be able to do. Miss Carolyn, don't you go anywhere.
Okay.
All right, I'll be right back. I want to thank all of you, and in particular, I want to thank my guest, Ms. Carolyn Johnson, the CEO of the Black Cultural Zone, for being on the show today. A gentle reminder to all of you is to support our efforts by inquiring about our sponsorship packages. And just remember, it's not too late for you to become a sponsor. If you're not in the space to do so, I am going to ask that you guys today donate to Black Cultural Zone. Please, whatever you do, there is a blessing in giving, whether you believe it or not. Hey, I want to be sure and remind you guys to follow me on all my social media platforms. Mark your calendars, guys, for every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for always a great show on You Didn't Get the Memo. Look, we're coming back large and stronger in 2022, if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, as my mom would say. And we've got a great shows for you. Also, I remind you guys that every Thursday, starting back in January, if you want some midweek inspiration, you can tune into my show, my podcast, Real Talk with Lady G, and I keep it real. It's on Spreaker.com. I appreciate all of you guys. You need to know that. I really and truly do. I appreciate you. I love you. And I thank you guys so much for all that you do and all that you're doing. It's been a blast. And as I always say, if you didn't take anything away from today's show, then it's really you who didn't get the memo. Your thought for the week is this: happy holidays to each and every one of you. But remember that this is not the year to get everything you want. This is the year to appreciate everything you have. Until this time next year, 2022. I ask that you give thanks for all of your blessings, stay safe, and always remember to pay it forward. I'm Gloria Bailey Ray, your host. Peace, blessings, and again, happy holidays.